It was designed to solve a very specific problem when Nick Saban and Bill Belichick were at the Cleveland Browns. So Belichick was the head coach, Saban was the defensive coordinator. They actually had a very good defense, but they had a problem whenever they played the Pittsburgh Steelers. They needed to rotate a safety down to stop the run, and that meant they were in a single high safety coverage. And the two primary ways that you can run a single high safety coverage is either cover one, which is man-to-man coverage with a free safety patrolling the middle, or cover three, which is a 3 zone coverage. And they had problems covering them in either scenario. In man-to-man coverage, the Steelers wide receivers would run crossing routes, which are routes that get crossed back and forth over the formation, and they would get open. And whenever they switched to cover three, the Steelers would run 4 verticals, which is 4 deep threats running down the field with only 3 defenders in the defender. And so they invented this defense as a way to solve that problem. It plays like man-to-man coverage when the receivers are running vertically, and it plays like zone coverage whenever they're running crossing routes back and forth across the field. It is sort of a rules-based defensive coverage. It's very interesting. There's a lot of sort of if, this, then that in it, which is one of the reasons why it's fascinating. The rules are actually fairly simple, but it's one of the more complicated concepts people have trying to explain. So we'll start with a single high safety. He has the easiest assignment. He's always going to play the deep middle or the high hole, is what they call it. The matching really starts when we come down to the corner. The corner is going to have this number 1 receiver. This is our number 1, our number 2. This back is probably going to be our number 3 on this side. The corner has number 1 up and out. So any deep route by this primary wide receiver, the corner is going to cover him like he's in the The only change occurs is if this wide receiver runs a shallow or an under route. So if he goes inside under 5 yards, the corner is then going to make an under call. So he's going to make an under call to communicate to his other defenders that there is an in-breaking route, and then this corner is going to zone off to this deep third. And actually, he's usually going to look and see if there's a vertical route by number 2 that he needs to get on top of. But in practice, he's getting to the deep third. So the next one inside is an overhang player. In Saban's defense, we call it the star, the money backer. They're going to have very similar rules, but they're playing what's called SC. And that stands for C, curl, flat. And that's really just the order of his responsibilities. So if the number 2 receiver that he's lined up on runs a vertical route up the seam, this backer is going to try and stay on top of it and force him inside to where there's help. Right. And then he's going to play any in-breaking route with underneath and outside leverage. Any out-breaking route, this turns into a corner, underneath and inside leverage, because he's going to have help on top and outside from either of these 2 locations. If this wide receiver breaks inside or he gets an undercall, then he's going to become a curl defender. And what that basically means is he's going to drop into this zone right around here, and he's going to start looking for anything that comes in this area or that comes out here into the flat. Now when we move inside, the linebackers, their assignments in some ways are the easiest, but they have the most rules. So the linebackers primarily, they're going to have number 3. I'm going to put the rules over here because we've got a little more space. So they have number 3. So if this running back gets into the pattern, out here, you become the number 3 to this strong side, and this linebacker is going to take him man to man. That's his man. So if we get an undercall, so again, so let's say
Edmund Smith run right
that
there.
on this side you get a shallow route, like they're going to run mesh or dig or drive or something like that. So we're going to get an undercall from this inside overhang play. And that tells this linebacker that he can now become a hook player. So the hook is just these zones, basically from the middle of the center over into the tackle in this shallow area. And so he's going to look and see if there's anything coming from either side running into this hook zone. And here's where the rules get a little complicated for him, because if he does not have a defender in his hook zone, and he does not have a number 3 to his side, he's going to do what's called a roll. And what that means is to roll over and rob any over routes, including primarily deep routes. So it's very common to dig in here to try and create a 3-level pattern in the defense, because most defenses are only structured to have deep coverage and shallow coverage. And so this dig route kind of runs in between the linebackers and safeties to create a 3rd level. And so if that linebacker is not getting anything, he doesn't have a number 3 to his side, he's not getting anything threatening his zone, he's going to run. And that just means he's going to run underneath here and try to rob underneath that dig route, because it's probably going to have coverage from this player. This overhang player is going to take it deep. He's going to be playing it outside and underneath. And so that means there's a window out in front of this route where that player is open, and the linebacker is going to try and get into that area to cut off any throw that would be to that deep. And that is pretty much it. That's the basic rules. Are of course exceptions and there's variations, but that is the coverage that started the pattern match trend in football, and almost every college or professional football team carries some form of pattern match coverage in it. So thanks for watching it. Let me know if you like this format, if you see any problems. Alright, so I've been thinking about doing some explainer videos to help out the tech company that I'm trying to get started, and to test out this format and to test out this technology. I thought I might do a quick football explainer to see how people like the format and try out the technology. So, real quick, I am going to do a brief description of Nick Saban's Cover 3 Rip Liz match. So if you've been on my social media, you've probably heard me talk about this before. I like to call it the grandfather of modern pattern matching defense. Because it was designed to solve a very specific problem when Nick Saban and Bill Belichick were at the Cleveland Browns. So Belichick was the head coach, Saban was the defensive coordinator. They actually had a very good defense, but they had a problem whenever they played the Pittsburgh Steelers. They needed to rotate a safety down.
Your friend requested the PlayStation. Megatron.
And the two primary ways that you can run a single high safety coverage is either cover one, which is man-to-man coverage with a free safety patrolling the middle, or cover three, which is a free zone coverage. And they had problems covering them in either scenario. In man-to-man coverage, the Steelers wide receivers would run crossing routes, which are routes that get crossed back and forth over the formation, and they would get open. And whenever they switched to cover three, the Steelers would run four verticals, which is four deep threats running down the field with only three defenders to defend them. And so they invented this defense as a way to solve that problem. It plays like man-to-man coverage when the receivers are running vertically, and it plays like zone coverage whenever they're running crossing routes back and forth across the field. It is sort of a rules-based defensive coverage. It's very interesting. There's a lot of sort of if this then that in it, which is one of the reasons why it's fascinating. The rules are actually fairly simple, but it's one of the more complicated concepts people have trying to explain. So we'll start with the single high safety. He has the easiest assignment. He's always going to play the deep middle third, or the high hole is what they call it. The matching really starts when we come down to the corners. The corner is going to have this number one receiver. So this is our number one. This is our number two. This back is probably going to be our number three on this side. The corner has number one, up, and out. So any deep route by this primary wide receiver, the corner is going to cover him like he's in man-to-man coverage. The only change occurs is if this wide receiver runs a shallow or an under route. So if he goes inside under 5 yards, the corner is then going to make an under call. So he's going to make an under call to communicate to his other defenders that there is an in-breaking route, and then this corner is going to zone off to this deep third. And actually, he's usually going to look and see if there's a vertical route by number two that he needs to get on top of, but in practice, he's getting up to the deep third. So the next one inside is an overhang player. In Saban's defense, he usually calls it the star, or the money backer. They're going to have very similar rules, but they're playing what's called SCF, and that stands for seam, curl, flat. And that's really just the order of his responsibilities. So if the number two receiver that he's lined up on runs a vertical route up the seams, this backer is going to try
this right here was the turning point.
Force him inside to where there's touch. Right? And then he's going to play any in-breaking route with underneath and outside leverage. Any out-breaking route, like if this turns into a corner, underneath and inside leverage, because he's going to have help on top and outside from either of these two locations. If this wide receiver breaks inside or he gets an undercall, then he's going to become a curl defender. And what that basically means is he's going to drop into this zone right around here, and he's going to start looking for anything that comes in this area or that comes out here into the flat. Now when we move inside, the linebackers, their assignments in some ways are the easiest, but they have the most rules. So the linebackers, primarily, they're going to have number three. I'm going to put the rules over here because we've got a little more space. So they have number three. So if this running back gets into the pattern, out here, he becomes the number three to this strong side, and this linebacker is going to take him man to man. That's his man. So if we get an undercall, so